Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you. You good?
All should be all good. Just turning my volume up a little bit.
All right.
All right.
Awesome. Well, I want to start a little bit by just telling people what I've been doing for these close to 2 months now that I've been doing here. So I have a pretty big following here on Instagram, and I was thinking of different ways that I can help our local community here in Southwest Florida. And the way that I thought of doing would be to do these live videos with local business owners, where they can showcase their products, showcase their services, and tell the public. Have a lot of followers from this area too, so tell the public a little bit about what they have to offer, and hopefully help them in this economy that is a little bit tough for everyone. So it's my way, I thought, of giving back to my community, right? And it's been going well. I think a lot of the businesses are very, very happy with what they got, from these shows. And I tell everyone, if I generated $1 out of it for doing something like this, then it was a success already, right? So, and if not, people got to know their businesses, and maybe in the future will help as well, right? So, in the middle of all that, I also try to give a little bit of entertainment. So I have some guest speakers come in. I get some former athletes, some singers that'll do lives and all that stuff. So it's been a fun ride so far. So. But enough about me. I want to know about Erin. Who's Erin? Where's she from? And how did she end up in Naples?
Okay. Are you saying I'm not entertaining? You said you have
No,
entertainers.
that's not what I'm saying.
I'm totally teasing. Totally teasing. So I am from Chicago, southwest suburb in Illinois, and I came here about 7 years ago. My husband always wanted to live where it's warm. And Chicago, it's not warm there.
Yeah.
So I was like, nope, my family's here. My friends are here. Not leaving. And then one day I was just like, you know what? I'm ready for something else, because I always lived, like I say, in a box. I went to grammar school down the street. I went to my high schools down a mile away, and my college was a mile away. So Erin needed to get outside her box. And I told my husband I was ready to move. And he was like, where? To like the next suburb over? And I was like, no, let's go explore where it's warm. So we had been going to Orlando 6 months, every 6 months. Then it got a little more frequent. So I said, let's go look. So we took a drive, and we wound up in the little town of Ave Maria near Naples. And I stood on the balcony of the condos. I said, we're moving here. I just made a decision, which is not like me. In the past, I'm a lot more decisive now, but 7 years ago, no. So we found a house and moved within a month.
Nice, very nice.
So,
That's a cool story. I mean, to be honest with you, my wife was very similar, right? We're from Boston, so both grew up in Boston. Our family's all there, and it was the same thing. This is we went to school there, high school, middle school, college, everything there. Never wanted to leave, but I always wanted to move down here. Just I thought it would be a better fit for me down here. And when I finally got a job down here, she said, "Yep, let's do it." And but it took me 10 years of convincing her to move down here. So.
Oh yeah, neither one of my husband or I had a job when we were going to buy a house. We were like, oh, that might be a problem. But we worked that all out. My husband. A couple of weeks later, got a job at the university here, so he's not working there anymore. But
very nice.
So that got us down here.
Awesome.
The weather is a definite bonus. It's just a different way of life for my kids.
Yeah.
To be able to go outside and not be stuck indoors so much. No more not as many video games and TV.
Yeah, and that's what that we always talk about. Ever going back there? Oh, by the way, if you ask my wife now if she wants to go back, she says absolutely not. But just to see the kids playing outside and in the pool and running around and all that stuff, and then think of like 3-4 foot of snow outside and you can't get out, and just we got a young one too, so bundling the kid up to get out in the cold and all that stuff is just we're glad we don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah. You don't even need a sweatshirt.
Absolutely. So then, wanted to kind of transition to your business a little bit, Aaron's Elevation Life Coach, and it's something fairly new to me. Obviously, I talked to you a little bit before. You gave me the very quick version of what it is, but wanted to kind of learn how you got into it. When did you decide to make a business out of it? And then, obviously, what you offer. So I know it's a lot of stuff, but take your time, explain away.
Okay. So when I was younger, my dad always gave me self-help books, and I loved them. I would read them and get super, super inspired, and just kept reading and reading and consuming. And I wasn't taking a lot of action though from those books. Like I'd get excited and then read the next one, instead of taking action. And I really always tried to help my friends when I was younger too. Like I was the one they came to, with their problems, and I was always, trying to help them problem solve. And sometimes didn't take care of myself enough, and didn't build my self-confidence and that sort of thing. So I was too busy helping other people when I was younger. And I came across a training for life coaches from Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know who Tony Robbins is.
Yeah, I know who Tony Robbins is.
Assuming you do.
Yeah.
And he was an inspiration to me when I was younger and in my young adulthood. And I was like, oh my goodness, these people wrote his training program and, wrote their own. And I was like, I'm doing this. I looked at my husband and I'm like, do you mind if I do this? He's like, no, do it. So I called and I got in, and the training started the next week. And that was 2 years ago. So I got my certification through Magliapietia and Marquesia's strategic intervention. And I started my business. I never would have thought that I would own a business. I'm like, oh, I guess I started an LLC. What does that even mean? So my husband's a financial planner, and he was building his business. So he helped me along the way a little bit, to get that started. And I just wanted to help people, because in gaining those life coaching skills, I use those in my life too. And I tell people it's like gold. Like once you have these techniques, you can fly. So what I do is I have one-on-one sessions with my clients. I have a 6-month package right now, because 6 months is the time it really takes to kind of retrain your brain. And that's what I'm doing with my clients. I help women gain confidence and a growth mindset to really go after their goals and accomplish what they want. So I'm an accountability coach, and I really just kind of show women what their strengths are. They already have it in them. Just try to pull it out and show it to them. It's all there. And then they learn to make those quicker decisions. They learn to set goals and be decisive and just go for it. I am truly, truly inspired by my clients. I can't tell you how many times in a session I'm like, hey, can I use that? I'll be writing something down, and, I'm like, can I quote you? Can I, so it's awesome. And I just teach them step by step to slowly make small changes that really add up to big, huge changes in their life. We start in one area, and then they just see it trickle out into every area of their life. Confidence, it helps in socialization, relationships with your significant other, in your workplace. So that's what I do on a weekly basis. We have like a 45-minute to an hour session. And then there's texts and emails in between. And they kind of have homework when they leave the session. They kind of set their homework. I teach them some skills, and then I'm like, what do you want to do for the week? So they kind of just get curious and come up with ways to do that.
Awesome. I wanted to ask a question that already popped into my mind as you're kind of explaining the whole process. Is, I've for many years I've done therapy, and I'm not ashamed to say that, right? And I wanted to understand, because some of the stuff that you're suggesting are not necessarily things that you discuss in therapy, because you're kind of more building up therapy. You're kind of going backwards a little bit and looking at what might affected you to be a certain way, of how'd you turn out to have certain feelings. So it's kind of looking more towards the past, and it sounds like what you're doing is more like, hey, yeah, that happened in the past, but going forward, let's focus on this And is that kind of the difference between going to therapy and having a life coach?
You hit the nail on the head. Like, we talk a little bit about that, what got you here, but really that doesn't matter. It's you're here now. Where do you want to go? It's go time. Let's get you there. That sort of thing. Get them in that right mindset, and it's future focused. I do a little technique with my clients where they have a conversation with their future self. Do you ever see The Biggest Loser, where they, like, they talk to themselves in the past? I have my clients talk to themselves in the future.
In the future.
What does that person look like? Why was it worth it? So yeah, it's absolutely future focused.
Awesome. And then and I don't want to brag about this, but like I'm one who always like envisions bigger things in the future, and I always have set big goals. Right? Is that part of the process as well? As like because they say for you to achieve your goals, first you have to envision, then you got to work towards them. Right? Is this something that you sort of work as well? And obviously, I don't want you to give away what your sessions are.
I'll give it all away. I want to help everyone. Honestly, no.
But
yes, absolutely. We set goals, and that's one of the things. What I do with my clients first, though, is we kind of just become aware of where they're at, and why are you here? And it's our thoughts. So our thoughts create our feelings. Okay, so take this COVID situation. We're in this time where people might be feeling like a little hopeless. Well, that's all coming from their thoughts. It's all coming from that, like, maybe this isn't going to turn out well, that sort of thing. So we start with just awareness of their thoughts. That triggers feelings, and that's where they take the action from. So yes, we find out what's causing our current results, and then we set tiny, tiny goals at first to train our brain to say, I can do hard things, and train our brain to say, I show up for myself. So we set what I call a minimum baseline. So what a minimum baseline is say you've never exercised and you want to be an exerciser.
Yeah.
You'll set a minimum baseline of putting your shoes on 2 days a week and walking for 5 minutes. Well, you're not going to walk for 5 minutes if you put your shoes on.
Yeah.
You're going to go farther, and maybe you do it 3 or 4 days. And then that rewires the brain to say, I show up for myself, I set a goal, and I achieve it. So that's what we do with a minimum baseline. Some of my clients are ready to go. So we set a hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
And then we work around the obstacles. What are your obstacles? What's going to stop you along the way? Because that's what happens when people set a goal. They quit because there's an obstacle in their way. Well, we plan to fail ahead of time. Oh, what has stopped me in the past? So we take those obstacles and we work around them before we even start. Yeah.
Awesome. And I guess along those lines, one of the things that I see, obviously in relationships that I have with people is that at times, they find excuses, right? Or they'll find, and I think this is part of what you're suggesting, those obstacles, right? Because then you create these obstacles in your mind, which sometimes are not really obstacles. It's just things that you create in your mind. So for example, sticking with the example of putting the shoes on, right? You might be willing to do, but you might think, well, I might tie my laces wrong and fall, right? Like, I don't know, I'm making something very, silly, but that will prevent you from putting your shoes on, right? Because you're thinking, well, I'm going to fail regardless if I just put my shoes on. And
Did you see how hard it was, though, to come up with an excuse for the 2-minute walking? Yeah. So that's why it's so easy. So those minimum baselines are almost inevitable. Then when we get to the bigger goals, that's when the obstacles, but like you said, yeah, that's exactly what people do. And that's where you need to be, number one, aware of your thought. Your thought is, I'm going to trip on my shoelaces. And thoughts are not facts. That's one of the first things I teach my clients. Thoughts are not facts. I'm not an exerciser. That's not a fact. It's super hard for people to believe. I'm like, you're telling yourself that. That's why you are not that.
Yeah.
But it's not a fact. If you tell yourself you're an exerciser by putting those shoes on 2 days a week, go for that 5-minute walk, you're going to build and build.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm in shape now, but when you start working out and eating healthy and doing all this stuff, you start with 5 minutes in the gym, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you build up. I did this many times where I went in and I started with 10 minutes, and the next thing I'm doing an hour, 15 minutes easily, right? And But if I never did those 10 minutes to begin with and tried the hour and a half first, then I would be, I'll be setting myself up for failure too, right? So the small goals.
Right? It's building belief.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you believe, okay, if I can do 10, I can do 15. And then it just keeps growing. Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's a lot of what I do with my clients, because a lot of them don't come to me with beliefs. So it's just building up those beliefs and playing on their strengths.
And then
go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was gonna say. So you mentioned, for example, that in between sessions, there's like messages, there's emails, there's some communication. Are you sort of those are incentives for them to continue, or you might just send a message and say, hey, how you doing? Please, continue hard, or is that what you're doing in between sessions as well?
Great question. Every client is different, so I tailor it completely different to every client. Sometimes it's something motivational that I know they need to hear, that it came from our session. Sometimes it's accountability. And I ask them how much, they want, sometimes they rely on me for the accountability. I'll text, at noon and say, hey, do you got that minimum baseline done? Or, did you, sometimes it's a minimum baseline of eating a vegetable. I'll be like, hey, how was your vegetables? That sort of thing. And just celebrating their wins in between too, along the way till they get to the next session to build up that belief. Sometimes it's just a question about a skill I taught during the session, and they're like, ooh, I'm doing my homework and I don't remember what I'm supposed to do. So it can be accountability, motivation, or just questions in between.
And then, do you feel that people, obviously they respond differently to different things. So like you said, you try to cater to them. But, and I guess I'm thinking for myself here as we're talking
Bring
about
it on. I love the
am, right? But for example, I'm very goal oriented, right? So, and if I don't have a ultimate goal at the end, it doesn't really motivate me that much, right? Like the journey doesn't motivate me, but the ultimate goal does. And I'll work as hard as I can to get to the ultimate goal. And I guess that could be different for other people, that people are enjoying the journey and they don't really know what the end goal is, but they enjoy it every single day. So each person's going to be different in that sense. Is that true for people, that then you have to cater to them to try to understand what's going to motivate them more than not? Or do you try to, like in my case, you would try to rewire me to say, no, let's think on a weekly basis and not at the end goal?
No, absolutely. We have to know where we're going, our destination and our journey. Some people, I start with those minimum baselines because we're just building confidence and belief at that point. Some of them like have an idea in their head, like, okay, I'm doing this for health, or I'm doing this for my relationship type of thing. But some clients, we set, like I said, that big, hairy, audacious goal right away. And we say the SMART goals, it's like, it's time. You have to put that time to it and say, by this time, I'm going to achieve this. Yes. And then it's that why. So I have them make a whole list of whys. Why are you doing this? You have to have your why behind it, because like you said, you sometimes don't enjoy the journey. So I teach you to celebrate your wins along the way.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, the other question I had for you was, you mentioned that mostly the clients that you work with are women. And is it by default, or is there something, specific that you chose that clientele, or is it just, something that kind of happened?
It's by default.
Okay.
In that I got more women coming to me. Would I coach a man? Absolutely.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's rewiring the brain. It's confidence and mindset. There's nothing different in, the man versus woman type of thing.
And that was my follow-up question. Would you treat it differently if it was a man or a woman? Is it, do you find that perhaps women have more difficulty with these, finding the self-confidence than a man would, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, there are a lot of things in society that tell women they need to be a super mom.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason I want to help women, to say, hey, no compare and despair here.
Yeah. Just
because someone down the block got their house organized doesn't mean you do. That's their talent. What's yours?
Yeah.
Let's find yours. So, there's a lot of standards out there. But I also think there's a lot of men that, have goals and just don't quite know how to get there and don't believe that they can.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, And then I wanted to ask you in regards to, um, so you do it for the 6 months, right? You do it for you set a goal almost with 6 months, and then what tends to happen after that? The people come back, they continue, or is it something that maybe you build that confidence, and then eventually they'll go down, and then you have to come back and have some refreshers, or how does that normally play out?
All three.
Okay.
So sometimes it's, the 6 months and people have got it and they're ready to fly.
Yeah.
Sometimes the 6 months and it's like, okay, I wanna keep you as a lifeline,
Yeah.
and we continue on their journey. And then there's some people after 6 months are like, okay, I'm good. And then they're kind of like, and I always tell them, I give them pricing, like if you want to sign up again, or if you want to just in the future, if you just want to have like a single session, kind of like you said, like a check-in and a refresher, we
Yeah.
do that.
Awesome. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that I think that's important because each person is going to respond differently too, right? There's some people that might get the lesson, let's put it that way, and they'll run with it and they'll be fine. And then there's others that are going to probably go back to the way that they were behaving before, and ideally that's not what you want it to happen, but it could happen. And then
Yeah.
so it'll be good to go back and have not only refreshers, or in that case maybe start a program, if we can call a program, all over again, right? So
Yeah. We all need help along the way. So yes.
awesome. And then we're coming to an end here, but I wanted to ask, if people are interested in some life coaching with you, how can they contact you? What's the best way to contact you? Do a phone number, a website, social media? And then I have some questions here too, I think. So I'll after you give the details, I'll see what the questions are.
Okay, great. So they can call or text Erin's Elevation Life Coaching. So that's 239-312-3073. Or they can find me on Facebook. It's Erin's Elevation Life Coaching. And I just started a group, Show Up to Level Up. So if people want to join my group, I'm super excited about that, just to kind of level up together.
Awesome. Yeah, and tomorrow, so I'll have this video on Facebook and in YouTube too. So I'll also tag the your information in there to the phone number and then the website as well. So
Awesome.
and let me just see. It looks like we got 2 questions here.
Okay.
Let's see what the questions are, or comments perhaps. It's just people saying hi.
Hi.
It's just no questions, just people saying hi. Well, Erin,
Okay.
I wanted to again thank you so much for taking the time talking to me, and telling us a little bit more about life coaching, about the the services that you provide, and I personally think it's something very helpful, right? And like you said, men and women, I think, need that. Sometimes just having someone from the outside, kind of guiding you a little bit and telling you it doesn't mean that you're a failure because you need help or anything like that, or it's quite the contrary, right? It's just someone that is not as involved in your life, could come in from an outside view. I say this because I'm an auditor, right? And it's funny because as an auditor, like an operational auditor, I actually go in and see how people are doing things, and then I get to say, hey, you can improve this, you can do this a little bit better, you can do this. And one of the things I always explain to people is, when you're doing certain things the same way, you don't have the view that I have, that I come from outside, and I can tell you how to change things up to make it better. So I can kind of correlate to life coaching in that sense, that it's like, you're coming in with a different set of eyes and you're saying, hey, you've been doing this hasn't worked, let's try this different way, which is essentially what I'm doing, but obviously for businesses and not people, right? So
Absolutely. And it's an evaluation process. It's not a shame process. And
right.
sometimes that's what we're doing in our brain, because
Yeah.
it's been wired into our brain to think negatively.
Yeah.
Our primitive brain kicks in and it kicks us in the butt and says negative things. And an outside person just helping you evaluate along the way.
Yeah, and I make it very clear for audit purposes. Now we're talking about when I'm doing audits, I make it very clear to tell people, hey, listen, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to say that you're doing something bad. I'm not here. I'm just pointing out a different way of you doing something that could help you, right? And I feel that this is exactly what you're doing as well. You're just pointing out different ways, different steps that people can take to get to the goal that they want to, right? So,
Yeah, you're empowering those people.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time. Hopefully people will contact you. And I don't know if you have a message or anything you want to leave for people.
Um, I guess just have compassion for yourself. Have compassion and self-love. That doesn't mean let yourself off the hook. Keep accountability, but have compassion and love and no judgment along the way.
Awesome.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you so
Well,
much for
thank you.
having me.
No problem. We'll talk.
Super fun.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.